What's up, legends? It's your boy, Chronos, back with another insane part of What If Deku Had All Types of Haki? Part 1. We're diving into a Deku that's not just strong, but unstoppable. And guess what? All the power, all the intensity, and all the action you've been waiting for is right here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. Let's smash 100 likes for the next part. Now, let's get into this. It's gonna be epic. The day Izuku Midoriya turned 4 was the day his life changed forever. While other children manifested their quirks with excitement and celebration, Izuku experienced something different. Something that would remain his secret for years to come. It started with whispers, not actual voices, but subtle impressions of intent that floated through his consciousness whenever people were nearby. At first, he thought everyone could sense these things, the flickers of emotion, the vague awareness of movement before it happened. "Mom, I think I know what you're about to do," Izuku said one evening as Inko reached for a plate in the cabinet. She turned, surprised. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "You're getting my favorite All Might plate," he replied with confidence. Inko's eyes widened slightly. That's right. How did you know?" Izuku shrugged. "I just knew." As weeks passed, these sensations grew stronger. He could feel the hostility radiating from Katsuki Bakugo moments before the explosive boy would turn his aggression toward him. He could sense the hesitation in his teachers when they discussed his quirklessness with his mother. Then came the black coating. It happened during one of Bakugo's more aggressive bullying sessions. Cornered behind the school, Izuku felt a strange surge of energy flow through his arm as Bakugo approached. "What are you gonna do, useless Deku?" Bakugo sneered, small explosions popping from his palms. "Cry for help." Instinctively, Izuku raised his arm in defense. To everyone's shock, including his own, his forearm turned black, hardening like steel. When Bakugo's explosion hit, Izuku felt nothing but a gentle warmth. The bullies backed away, confusion evident on their faces. "What the hell was that?" Bakugo demanded, a mix of anger and surprise in his voice. Izuku stared at his arm as the blackness faded. "I don't know," but that wasn't entirely true. Something deep inside told him this power was his to command. He just needed to learn how. The final manifestation came during his 6th birthday party. The few classmates who had shown up were arguing over who would get the first slice of cake. As tensions rose and Izuku felt his mother's distress, something snapped within him. "Stop it," he shouted. A wave of invisible force rolled outward from his body. The fighting children suddenly went quiet, a few of the weaker-willed ones dropping to their knees with wide eyes. Inko had felt it too, a pressure that made her heart skip a beat. She looked at her son with new eyes, wondering what this meant. That night, after everyone had gone, she sat with Izuku on the edge of his bed. "Izuku, what happened today and the other times? Is this your quirk?" Izuku looked up at her, emerald eyes serious beyond his years. "I don't think it's a quirk, Mom. Feels different." "Different how?" "Like it's always been inside me waiting. Not something new that appeared." Inko nodded slowly, stroking her son's green hair. "Whatever it is, we should keep it between us for now, until we understand it better." Izuku agreed. Something told him this power wasn't meant to be registered at the quirk office or shown off to classmates. It was something deeper, something ancient, and so Izuku Midoriya grew up with his secret. He learned to control the 3 distinct aspects of his mysterious power: the ability to sense intentions and predict movements, the hardening of his body parts with black energy, and the overwhelming force of his will that could subdue others without physical contact. He trained in private, pushing himself to understand these abilities while maintaining his facade of quirklessness in public. It wasn't easy, especially with Bakugo's constant harassment, but Izuku refused to reveal his true capabilities until the right moment came. By age 14, Izuku had mastered his powers to a degree that would have impressed even the most seasoned pro heroes. His reflexes were lightning fast thanks to his heightened perceptions. His strikes, when coated in the black energy, could shatter concrete. And when truly angered, his mere presence could make ordinary people faint. Still, he yearned for more. These abilities, while powerful, didn't align with his dream of becoming a hero like All Might, a symbol who saved people with a smile. His powers felt more suited to combat than rescue. That all changed the day he encountered the sludge villain. Walking home beneath an underpass, Izuku sensed malevolent intent before he heard the manhole cover shift. His observation ability, what he had come to call his 6th sense, flared with warning. "Someone's coming," he muttered, dropping his hero analysis notebook and shifting into a defensive stance. The sludge villain erupted from the sewer, surprised to find his intended victim already prepared. "What's this? A kid who can sense me coming?" the villain gurgled. No matter. Your body will make a perfect disguise. As the villain lunged, Izuku coated both arms in black energy and struck with precision. His hardened fist connected with what seemed to be the villain's core, causing the sludge to splatter momentarily before reforming. Interesting quirk you have, boy, the villain laughed. But I'm liquid. You can't hurt me. Izuku narrowed his eyes, concentrating harder. He could sense a pattern in the villain's movements, a rhythm to his attacks. Using his heightened perception, he dodged each strike while looking for a weakness. But the villain was right. Physical attacks weren't effective against his liquid form. As the battle dragged on, Izuku found himself backing up against the wall, considering using his third power, the overwhelming force of will that could knock people unconscious. Before he could, however, a booming voice echoed through the underpass. Have no fear, for I am here. All Might, in all his muscular glory, landed between Izuku and the villain. With a single Texas smash, the air pressure created by his punch scattered the sludge villain into harmless puddles, which he quickly collected into empty soda bottles. Turning to Izuku, the #1 hero gave his signature smile. Are you all right, young man? That was quite the predicament. Izuku, momentarily starstruck at meeting his idol, nodded. But then All Might's expression changed, becoming more serious as he studied the boy before him. Those moves, what you did before I arrived, that wasn't a normal quirk, was it? Izuku froze. All Might had seen him use his abilities. Well, it's complicated, Izuku admitted. All Might's smile returned, though smaller than before. I see. Well, regardless, you showed impressive combat awareness for someone so young. Have you considered applying to UA? It's my dream school, Izuku replied, but I wasn't sure if my abilities would be understood there. All Might seemed about to say more when suddenly he clutched his side, a grimace replacing his smile. Steam began to pour off his body. Young man, I must go now. Keep up the good work, and he didn't finish the sentence as more steam enveloped him. Acting on instinct, Izuku reached out and grabbed All Might's arm. Wait, there's something I need to ask you. What happened next shocked them both. As Izuku made contact, his observation ability gave him a flash of insight. A grievous wound, a limited time frame, a fading power. At the same moment, All Might transformed, his muscular form deflating into a gaunt, skeletal figure. They stared at each other in mutual surprise. You saw it, didn't you? All Might asked, blood trickling from his mouth. My injury, Izuku nodded slowly. Not just saw it, felt it. The damage to your respiratory system, the missing stomach, the limited time you have left with your power. All Might's sunken eyes widened further. That's impossible. How could you know the details? Unless, it's not a quirk, Izuku said quietly. I've had these abilities since I was 4. I can sense things about people, their intentions, their conditions. I can harden my body. He demonstrated by coating his arm with the black energy. And when necessary, I can project my will to overwhelm others. All Might studied him with new interest. Young man, what's your name? Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. Well, young Midoriya, it seems we both have secrets to share. Perhaps we should talk somewhere more private. And that was how Izuku Midoriya, bearer of the mysterious powers he didn't yet know were called Haki, came to learn about One for All from the symbol of peace himself. As they sat on a rooftop overlooking the city, All Might explained his quirk, a power passed down through generations, growing stronger with each successor. I've been searching for someone worthy to inherit my power, All Might confessed. Someone with the right spirit, the right heart. Izuku listened intently, his observation ability telling him every word was sincere. These abilities you have, All Might continued, they're remarkable. Unlike any quirk I've encountered. Combined with One for All, you could become something this world has never seen before. You're offering your quirk to me? Izuku asked, stunned. All Might nodded. But it won't be easy. One for All is incredibly powerful. The strain on an unprepared body could be devastating. Izuku thought about his black energy, what All Might had called armament after Izuku described it further. What if I could use this hardening ability to reinforce my body when using your power? All Might's eyes lit up. That could work. In theory, it might allow you to access more of One for All's potential without the usual physical consequences. A plan began to form. All Might would train Izuku for the UA entrance exam, helping him learn to combine his mysterious abilities with One for All. In return, Izuku would become the next symbol of peace when the time came. One more thing, All Might said as they parted ways. These powers of yours, keep them secret for now. Use them when necessary, but don't reveal their full extent."
"Why not?" Izuku asked. "Because true strength is often best kept in reserve," All Might replied. "And because powers that can't be explained tend to make people nervous. Let them think it's all part of what you'll inherit from me."
Izuku nodded, understanding the wisdom in those words. As he walked home that evening, a new determination filled him. With his 3 mysterious abilities and the promise of one for all, Izuku Midoriya was no longer the defenseless, quirkless boy people thought him to be. He was on the path to becoming something more, perhaps the greatest hero the world had ever known. And neither Bakugo, nor the entrance exam, nor whatever villains might come would stand in his way.
The age of Deku was about to begin. The following morning, Izuku woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. His meeting with All Might had changed everything. No longer would he hide in the shadows, pretending to be quirkless while secretly training his abilities. Now he had a mentor, the greatest hero in the world, and a clear path forward. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Dagoba Municipal Beach Park, 5 a.m. tomorrow. Come prepared to work harder than you ever have. All Might."
Izuku smiled. This was really happening. That day at school passed in a blur. Not even Bakugo's taunts could dampen his spirits. When the explosive boy cornered him after class with his usual intimidation tactics, Izuku simply looked him in the eye without flinching. "What's with that look, Deku?" Bakugo growled, small explosions popping from his palms. "Acting like you're not scared anymore?" Izuku considered his options. He could use his observation Haki to dodge whatever attack Bakugo was planning. He could coat his arms in armament Haki and show Bakugo that things had changed. He could even use a small burst of Conqueror's Haki to make Bakugo back down. But All Might's words echoed in his mind. True strength is often best kept in reserve.
Instead, Izuku simply smiled. "I'm just in a good mood today, Kaken. That's all. TCH. Bakugo looked confused by the calm response. "Whatever. Just stay out of my way at UA if you somehow manage to get in. See you at the entrance exam," Izuku replied confidently, walking away before Bakugo could respond. The next morning, Izuku arrived at Dagoba Beach well before the scheduled time. The place was a disaster. Years of ocean currents had turned it into an illegal dumping ground filled with trash and abandoned appliances. He sensed All Might's presence before seeing him. His observation Haki had grown sensitive enough to recognize specific people's auras. "Good morning, young Midoriya," All Might called out, still in his skeletal form. "I'm impressed by your punctuality."
"I couldn't sleep much," Izuku admitted. "Too excited about starting training." All Might laughed. "That enthusiasm will serve you well, because this," he gestured to the trash-covered beach, "is your first task." Izuku looked confused. "The beach, exactly. You're going to clean this entire section of the beach before the UA entrance exam. And before you ask, no, you can't use your special abilities to make it easier."
"But why?" Izuku asked, surveying the enormous task before him.
3 reasons. All Might held up 3 bony fingers. First, to build your base physical strength. One for All is a power stockpiling quirk that grows with each generation. My predecessor could use it at full strength immediately because her body was already trained to handle it. You'll need similar conditioning. That makes sense. Izuku nodded.
Second, heroes these days are all about flashy quirks and combat, but the origins of heroism were community service. Cleaning this beach will remind you of that foundation.
Izuku looked at the polluted shoreline with new eyes. And the third reason? To see what you're capable of without your abilities. All Might said seriously. I need to understand your baseline before we combine your Haki with one for all.
My Haki? Izuku repeated the unfamiliar term. All Might nodded. After our meeting yesterday, I did some research. There are old legends about powers similar to yours, abilities beyond quirks that manifest in select individuals. In some of those stories, they're called Haki.
So there are others like me? Izuku asked, excitement building.
If there are, they're keeping it very quiet, All Might replied. Or the abilities are so rare that they've been misclassified as unusual quirks. Either way, we should stick with our plan of secrecy.
And so began Izuku's 10 months of hellish training. Every morning before school and every evening after, he hauled refrigerators, microwaves, and countless other discarded items off the beach. His muscles screamed in protest, but he never complained. 3 months into the training, All Might deemed Izuku's physical progress sufficient to begin incorporating his Haki abilities with the future power of one for all. The way I see it, All Might explained as they sat on a half-cleared section of the beach, your 3 Haki types could perfectly complement one for all if used correctly.
How so? Izuku asked, wiping sweat from his brow.
Your observation haki already gives you enhanced reflexes and the ability to sense attacks before they happen. Combined with one for all speed, you'll be virtually untouchable.
Izuku nodded, already imagining the possibilities.
Your armament haki is even more crucial, All Might continued. One for all puts enormous strain on the user's body. Normally, a new user can only access a small percentage without breaking their bones. But if you can use your armament haki to reinforce your body,
I could potentially use a higher percentage safely. Izuku finished the thought.
Exactly. And as for your Conqueror's haki, what did you call it? The overwhelming will. Yes, Izuku confirmed. It's the one I use least often. It feels intimidating to use it on regular people. All Might nodded approvingly. That restraint shows good judgment. This power should be reserved for true threats. But when combined with the presence of one for all at full power, you could potentially defuse villain situations without a single punch thrown. Each evening after clearing trash, they now dedicated an hour to haki training. All Might would attack from random directions, forcing Izuku to rely on his observation haki to dodge. They practiced channeling armament haki to specific body parts with increasing precision. The Conqueror's haki, being the most difficult to train without subjects, was practiced through focus exercises designed to strengthen Izuku's willpower.
One evening, about 6 months into their training, Izuku managed to coat both arms and legs simultaneously in armament haki while blindfolded, relying solely on observation haki to block All Might's attacks.
Excellent. Young Midoriya, All Might boomed in his muscular form, impressed by the display. Your control is improving dramatically. Izuku removed the blindfold, panting but pleased. It's getting easier to maintain multiple aspects at once. That's crucial for what we're planning, All Might said, reverting to his true form as his time limit expired. When you inherit one for all, you'll need to instinctively activate your armament haki whenever you channel the quirk. What percentage of one for all do you think I'll be able to handle at first? Izuku asked. All Might considered the question. Without haki, maybe 5% at most without injury. With your armament reinforcement, perhaps 15 to 20% to start, which is unprecedented for a new user. Izuku nodded, determination burning in his eyes. I'll make it work. As the months passed, the beach gradually transformed. Where mountains of trash had once dominated the landscape, clean sand began to appear. Izuku's body transformed as well, lean muscle replacing his formerly average physique. The night before the entrance exam, Izuku moved the final refrigerator from the beach. Standing atop the appliance, he let out a roar of triumph that unconsciously carried a wave of Conqueror's haki, causing birds to scatter from nearby trees. All Might arrived to find his student silhouetted against the rising sun, the beach completely restored to its natural beauty. Young Midoriya, you've exceeded my expectations, All Might said proudly.
Izuku jumped down, his legs briefly coated in black haki to absorb the impact. I finished everything you asked. Indeed you have. And now it's time for you to inherit my power.
All Might transformed into his heroic form and plucked a strand of golden hair. Eat this. Izuku blinked. Eat your hair.
To inherit my quirk, you need to ingest my DNA. This is the least disgusting way I could think of.
Slightly apprehensive but trusting his mentor, Izuku took the hair and swallowed it. How long until it takes effect? He asked.
The power should metabolize in about 3 hours, All Might explained, which gives us just enough time to go over the plan for the entrance exam.
They sat on the now pristine beach as the sun continued to rise. Remember, don't reveal everything at once, All Might advised. Use your observation haki freely. People will assume it's good instincts. Use armament haki only when channeling one for all, and make it look like part of the same quirk. And the Conqueror's haki, only as a last resort, Izuku finished. I understand. Good. Now, when you first use one for all, start with your fingers. Channel the power there while simultaneously reinforcing them with armament haki. If my theory is correct, you should be able to use about 15% without injury.
Izuku nodded, mentally rehearsing the technique. One last thing, All Might said, his voice growing serious. There's something special about you, young Midoriya. Something beyond these haki abilities or one for all. It's the heart of a true hero, the instinct to help others without hesitation. Never lose sight of that, no matter how powerful you become.
I won't, Izuku promised, emotion thick in his voice. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did.
As they parted ways, Izuku felt a strange tingling throughout his body, the first sign of one for all integrating with his system. By the time he arrived home, he could feel an enormous wellspring of power just beneath the surface waiting to be tapped.
That night, in the privacy of his room, Izuku held out his hand and focused. Green lightning began to crackle around his fingers as he carefully channeled a small portion of One for All. Simultaneously, he coated his hand in the black sheen of armament Haki. The combination felt right, like two pieces of a puzzle clicking perfectly together. Instead of pain, he felt stability and control as the two powers synchronized. Izuku smiled. Tomorrow would be the true test, the UA entrance exam. As he laid down to sleep, one thought remained in his mind. The age of Deku wasn't just beginning. It was about to explode onto the scene in a way no one, not Bakugo, not the other examinees, not even the teachers at UA, could possibly anticipate.
For the first time in his life, Izuku Midoriya felt unstoppable. Morning came quickly, and with it, the day that would determine Izuku's future. As he donned his school uniform and prepared to leave for UA, his mother stopped him at the door.
"Izuku," Inko said, tears welling in her eyes. "I just want you to know, I'm so proud of you, no matter what happens today." Izuku hugged her tightly. "Thanks, Mom, but don't worry, I'm going to pass this exam. I promise."
The massive gates of UA High School loomed before Izuku, a physical representation of the barrier between his dream and reality. Students from all over Japan crowded the entrance, each hoping for a spot in the prestigious hero program. Don't trip, he muttered to himself as he walked forward.
His observation Haki suddenly flared. Someone was approaching quickly from behind. Instinctively, he sidestepped, narrowly avoiding a collision with a girl with brown hair and rosy cheeks. "Whoa!" she exclaimed, regaining her balance. "How did you know I was about to crash into you? That was amazing." Izuku scratched the back of his head. "Just good reflexes, I guess." "Well, thanks for avoiding disaster. I'm Achiko Uraraka." She introduced herself with a bright smile. "Are you here for the hero course too?" "Izuku Midoriya," he replied, returning her smile. "And yes, that's the plan." As they walked toward the main building together, Izuku sensed a familiar presence. His observation Haki detected anger, frustration, and fierce determination, emotions he'd grown up feeling directed at him. "Deku," Bakugo's voice cut through the crowd. "Still pretending you belong here?"
Izuku turned to face his childhood tormentor. In the past, he might have shrunk away or stammered an apology. But that was before All Might, before One for All, before he'd embraced his Haki abilities.
"I'm not pretending anything, Kaken," Izuku replied calmly. "I'm here to pass the exam, just like you." Bakugo's eyes narrowed at Izuku's confidence. "Something's different about you. Did you suddenly develop a quirk after all these years?" For a moment, Izuku considered telling the truth about One for All, about the power All Might had entrusted to him. But he remembered his mentor's advice about keeping secrets. "I guess you'll find out during the exam," Izuku said with a slight smile, turning away. He could feel Bakugo's fury spike behind him but chose to ignore it. Today wasn't about their rivalry. It was about taking the first step toward becoming a hero. The written portion of the exam passed without incident. Izuku's studying had prepared him well, and he finished with time to spare. The real challenge would come during the practical exam.
Present mixed explanation of the robot villains and point system was straightforward enough. Defeat robots of varying difficulty to earn points within a 10-minute time limit. Piece of cake, Bakugo muttered from nearby. I'll get the highest score for sure. Izuku remained silent, mentally preparing himself. He would need to balance his new powers carefully, using enough to succeed but not so much that he drew undue attention. When the examinees were divided into groups and assigned to different testing grounds, Izuku found himself separated from Bakugo. He spotted Uraraka in his group and was about to approach her when a tall boy with glasses intercepted him.
"That girl appears to be concentrating," the serious-looking boy said. "Are you planning to distract her? Is that your strategy to reduce competition?" "What? No, Izuku began but was cut off. "If you're not taking this exam seriously, perhaps you should reconsider your application to this prestigious institution." Izuku's observation Haki sensed genuine, if misplaced, concern from the boy. Rather than argue, he simply nodded. "You're right. Everyone needs to focus. Good luck with the exam." The serious boy looked surprised by the mature response, but had no time to reply as Present Mike suddenly shouted, "Start!" While the other examinees hesitated, confused by the lack of countdown, Izuku was already moving. His observation Haki had detected the mechanical movements of robots several blocks into the fake city. There are no countdowns in real hero work. Present Mike called out as the other students finally began to move. Izuku rounded a corner and found himself face to face with a two-pointer robot. The mechanical villain scanned him and charged forward. Target acquired. Commencing attack.
Time seemed to slow as Izuku activated his observation Haki at full power. He could see the robot's movements before they happened, anticipating the exact trajectory of its mechanical arm.
Sidestepping the attack with ease, Izuku activated 15% of One for All, simultaneously coating his right fist in armament Haki. Green lightning crackled around his blackened hand as he drove his fist into the robot's center.
The machine exploded in a shower of metal parts, completely destroyed by the combined power of his strike.
2 points, Izuku muttered, already sensing more robots approaching from different directions.
Within minutes, Izuku had accumulated 45 points, moving through the testing ground with efficiency that drew shocked stares from other examinees. The combination of his observation Haki to locate and anticipate robots, armament Haki to protect his body, and One for All's power to destroy them made him virtually unstoppable.
That green-haired kid is insane, one examinee whispered to another. What kind of quirk does he have? Some kind of strength enhancement with electricity? And did you see how his arms turn black sometimes? Must be a multi-quirk ability. Izuku overheard these comments but remained focused on the task. He had a decent score, but he couldn't afford to become complacent.
That's when he felt it, a tremendous rumbling beneath the streets. His observation Haki warned him of something massive approaching, something that dwarfed the other robots.
The zero-pointer emerged, a colossal machine that towered over the buildings. Present Mike had advised avoiding it since it yielded no points, and the other examinees were already running in the opposite direction. Izuku was about to join them when his observation Haki detected someone in distress. Focusing his senses, he located Uraraka trapped under debris directly in the zero-pointer's path. Without hesitation, Izuku sprinted toward the danger. The rational part of his mind noted that this wouldn't earn him any points, but he pushed that thought aside. Someone needed help, that was all that mattered. Hang on, he called out to Uraraka as he reached her side. My leg, she grimaced, pointing to where a large piece of concrete pinned her to the ground. I can't move it. The zero-pointer was closing in fast. Izuku quickly assessed the situation. He could use One for All to jump them both to safety, but the sudden movement might injure Uraraka further. He could try to destroy the robot, but that would require more power than he'd used so far. Decision made, Izuku coated both arms in armament Haki and lifted the concrete slab. Can you move now?
Uraraka pulled herself free and tried to stand, wincing in pain. I think my ankle sprained.
The zero-pointer was now directly above them, its massive foot about to come down on their position. There was no time to escape conventionally.
Hold on to me, Izuku instructed, helping Uraraka onto his back.
As she wrapped her arms around his neck, Izuku channeled 20% of One for All throughout his entire body, simultaneously reinforcing himself with armament Haki. Green lightning crackled more intensely as he bent his legs and launched upward with explosive force.
They soared past the zero-pointer's head, rising high above the testing ground. At the apex of their jump, Izuku realized they were now falling toward the robot's vulnerable head section. This might get rough, he warned Uraraka. Can you use your quirk on both of us? I think so, she replied, touching them both with her fingertips. There, we should float now.
As their descent slowed, Izuku made a split-second decision. Carefully shifting Uraraka to hold her with one arm, he channeled 30% of One for All into his free hand, coating it with the densest armament Haki he could muster.
Smash! He shouted, driving his fist downward onto the zero-pointer's control center.
The impact was devastating. The robot's head caved in completely, and a chain reaction of explosions rippled through its massive body. As the behemoth began to collapse, Izuku used his enhanced strength to push off from the falling debris, carrying Uraraka safely to a nearby rooftop.
Release your quirk, he told her once they were secure. I'll get us down safely. Once gravity returned, Izuku carried her to ground level where emergency medical robots were already arriving to assess injuries. That was amazing, Uraraka exclaimed, her eyes wide with admiration. You saved me and destroyed that huge robot. Your quirk is incredible.
Izuku smiled modestly. I just did what any hero would do.
As medical robots tended to Uraraka's ankle, Izuku heard murmurs from the other examinees who had witnessed his feat.
Did you see that? He jumped higher than a building, and that punch. The zero-pointer never stood a chance. His arms and legs were turning black and glowing green at the same time. What kind of quirk is that? Present Mixed voice announced the end of the exam, and Izuku exhaled deeply. He had given a good showing, accumulated plenty of points, and most importantly, had followed his heroic instincts when someone needed help.
As he prepared to leave the testing ground, a small elderly woman approached recovery girl Yue's nurse.
"That was quite the performance, young man," she said, eyeing him curiously. "Any injuries you need treating?"
Izuku shook his head. "No ma'am, I'm fine."
She studied him with a knowing look. "Most students who use enhancement quirks at that level suffer some consequences. You must have excellent control." Before Izuku could respond, she moved on to check other examinees. He couldn't help but wonder if she suspected something unusual about his abilities. Outside the testing facility, Izuku was surprised to find All Might waiting for him, disguised in his skeletal form and wearing a trench coat and hat. "Young Midoriya," All Might said quietly as they walked away from the crowds. "I observed your performance from the monitor room. Most impressive. Did I overdo it with the zero-pointer?" Izuku asked anxiously. All Might shook his head. "Not at all. In fact, what you don't know is that the practical exam has a secret scoring component. Rescue points awarded by the judges for heroic actions. Saving that young lady will likely earn you a substantial bonus." Relief flooded through Izuku. "That's good to hear." More importantly, All Might continued, "Your control over One for All, when combined with your Haki, exceeded my expectations. No injuries despite using up to 30% power. That's unheard of for a new wielder." Izuku flexed his fingers. "The armament Haki seems to create the perfect counterbalance to One for All strain. And the observation Haki lets me channel the energy more precisely." "Indeed. Though I noticed you didn't use your Conqueror's Haki at all." "It didn't seem necessary," Izuku explained. "The robots probably wouldn't be affected anyway, and using it on other examinees would have been unfair." All Might nodded approvingly. "Good judgment. Save that power for when you truly need it." A week later, Izuku sat nervously in his room, staring at the letter from Yue. His mother hovered anxiously in the doorway. "Aren't you going to open it?" Inko asked. With trembling fingers, Izuku broke the seal. A small disc fell onto his desk and projected a hologram of All Might in his heroic form.
"I am here as a projection," the hologram announced. Izuku quickly shut his bedroom door, giving All Might's message privacy in case it revealed something about One for All. "Young Midoriya, I am proud to inform you that you passed the written exam with flying colors. As for the practical exam, you earned 45 villain points, an impressive score by itself. But that's not all. The judges were moved by your selfless rescue of another examinee, awarding you 70 rescue points. That's a total of 115 points. The highest score in UA history." Izuku's jaw dropped. "The highest in history. Congratulations, young man. You've earned your place at UA High School's hero course. This is your first step toward becoming the hero you were meant to be. I look forward to seeing you in class." "That's right. I'll be teaching at UA this year." As the projection ended, Izuku sat in stunned silence. Not only had he been accepted, but he'd broken records doing it. The path he dreamed of for so long was finally opening before him. "Mom!" he called out, opening his door with tears of joy streaming down his face. "I got in. I got first place." Inko rushed forward to embrace her son, her own tears flowing freely. "I'm so proud of you, Izuku. So proud." That night, as Izuku lay in bed reflecting on everything that had happened, he made a silent promise to himself, to All Might, and to the world. He would master his unique combination of powers. He would grow into a hero worthy of the trust placed in him. And he would use the unprecedented abilities he possessed, this combination of One for All and the 3 forms of Haki that only he wielded in this world, to become the greatest hero anyone had ever seen. UA High School, Japan's top institution for hero education, stood tall before Izuku Midoriya, its grand structure symbolizing the beginning of his journey. As he walked through the gates on his first official day, his heart pounded, not with fear, but with excitement. This was it. This was where he would refine his skills, push himself beyond his limits, and truly become a hero. His observation Haki flared instinctively, giving him an awareness of everything around him. He could feel the emotions of the crowd: nervousness, excitement, arrogance, curiosity. Some students radiated confidence, others doubt. But one thing was clear: they all wanted to be heroes. As he stepped inside, he heard whispers from the students passing by. "Hey,
That's the guy who got first place in the entrance exam. No way. I thought it was Bakugo. I heard he destroyed a giant robot like it was nothing. Izuku ignored the murmurs. He wasn't here for attention. He was here to train. After navigating the halls, he found his way to Class 1A. Taking a deep breath, he slid the door open.
Inside, he immediately noticed Bakugo sitting in his usual arrogant posture, leaning back in his chair. The moment their eyes met, Bakugo scoffed, but Izuku didn't react. He just walked past him, calm as ever. "Deku," Bakugo suddenly growled, his eyes burning with frustration. "What the hell happened to you?" Izuku glanced at him, his expression unreadable. "I trained."
Bakugo's teeth clenched. But before he could say anything else,
"If you're here to socialize, leave."
a monotone, tired voice cut through the room.
Everyone turned toward the source, a scruffy-looking man wrapped in a yellow sleeping bag, lying in the middle of the classroom like a caterpillar.
"My name is Shoyuta Aizawa. I'm your homeroom teacher."
The students stiffened. "Put on your gym uniforms and meet me outside. You have 10 minutes.
The quirk assessment test begins. The class gathered outside on the training field, the crisp morning air carrying a sense of tension and anticipation. Aizawa stood before them, arms crossed. The quirk assessment test will determine your potential as future heroes.
A few murmurs of confusion broke out.
"Wait!" Uraraka raised her hand. "What about the entrance ceremony and orientation?" Ida added. Aizawa's gaze was deadpan. "If you're here for social events, leave. You're here to become heroes, not students at some kindergarten." The class gulped. Aizawa turned to Bakugo. "You had the highest score on the physical portion of the entrance exam. What was your record for throwing a softball in middle school?" Bakugo smirked. "About 67 meters.
Aizawa tossed him a softball. "Use your quirk. Go all out." Grinning, Bakugo gripped the ball and wound up his arm. With an explosion, he launched it into the air, sending it flying far into the sky.
The device in Aizawa's hand beeped.
705.2 meters.
The class erupted into murmurs. "This looks fun." Mina cheered. "Oh, it's fun." Aizawa's gaze sharpened. "Then let me add some motivation. The student with the lowest overall score will be expelled." The excitement died instantly. "Expelled!" Mineta shrieked.
Aizawa's gaze was cold. "If you can't handle a simple test, you have no future here."
A nervous tension settled over the students. Izuku's performance. Haki versus one for all. The tests began and Izuku dominated.
In the 50-meter dash, he used observation Haki to predict the perfect stride and 30% of one for all to explode forward. 2.94 seconds.
Oh, in the grip strength test, he casually coated his hand in armament Haki, shattering the machine's previous record. 850 kilograms.
In the standing long jump, a slight burst of power from one for all sent him soaring far past the designated field.
By the time they reached the final test, the softball throw, all eyes were locked on Izuku. Walking up to the throwing circle, he gripped the ball tightly. He could feel Bakugo's glare burning into his back. He could feel Aizawa's analytical gaze watching closely.
He could feel the entire class holding their breath. Izuku took a deep breath and coated his arm in armament Haki, not enough to turn it black, but enough to reinforce his muscles. He activated 30% of one for all, green lightning crackling around him.
With a sharp exhale, he launched the ball skyward. Boom!
The ground beneath him cracked. The air pressure rippled outward. The ball disappeared into the clouds.
The device in Aizawa's hand beeped. Infinity. Silence.
Then, what the hell? Kaminari nearly fell over.
"That's not fair." Mineta whined. Kirishima gawked. "Midoriya, what kind of quirk do you even have?" Izuku stepped back, rubbing his arm. He had held back, ensuring that the power wouldn't injure him. Aizawa stared at his device, then back at Izuku. Then Izuku felt it. His observation Haki flared. Danger. His quirk was gone. For the first time since training with All Might, Izuku felt one for all's power completely disappear from his body. His Haki remained, but the sudden loss of energy nearly made him stumble. Aizawa lowered his goggles, revealing glowing red eyes. "Midoriya, you're hiding something."
The class turned toward them, confused.
"I don't know how you're negating the damage from that power," Aizawa continued, "but no first-year student should be able to do what you just did without serious drawbacks."
Izuku steadied himself. Aizawa's erasure quirk, it nullified one for all.
"But it didn't work on Haki."
"I've trained to handle the strain," Izuku answered carefully. "I wouldn't use a technique that could injure me."
Aizawa studied him for a long moment. Then his quirk deactivated.
We'll see." Izuku let out a breath. That was too close. After the test,
when the final scores were announced, Izuku Midoriya, First place.
TCH Bakugo scowled, his fists clenched.
The class let out a collective sigh of relief when Aizawa confirmed that no one would be expelled. As they walked back to the main building, Uraraka caught up to Izuku. That was insane. How did you throw it that far?
Izuku smiled. Just a lot of training.
Before she could ask more, all first-year hero students, report to Gym Gamma for your first battle trials. Your instructor will be All Might.
Izuku's eyes widened.
Aizawa sighed. Great. That idiot's going to be loud. Izuku grinned. The next trial was about to begin. And that's a wrap, legends. Hope you enjoyed part 1 of What If Deku Had All Types of Haki. If you did, don't forget to drop a like, hit that subscribe, and leave a comment on what you think is going to happen next. Remember, your support keeps this channel alive and kicking, so thank you for being awesome.
Let's keep the hype going, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay powerful.